All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to look at a case that started out as what many people called a wild conspiracy theory, only to be confirmed as one of the most significant and horrifying ethical violations in American history.
Just let that sink in for a second. That statement you see, it is not an exaggeration. It is the verified, awful truth of a government-run study, and it's really the core of everything we're going to unpack today.
So, you have to be asking, how in the world did a story that sounds so completely unbelievable become an undeniable fact? Well, it's a journey that starts with rumor and total disbelief, and ends with exposure, thanks to whistleblowers and the government's very own records.
Okay, so let's be precise. Its official name was the Tuskegee Study of Untreated Syphilis in the Negro Male. Yeah, that was its actual name. It ran for 40 years, from 1932 all the way to 1972, and it was conducted by the U.S. Public Health Service. Their stated goal? To observe the natural, untreated progression of a deadly disease.
And for a long, long time, if you tried to tell someone this story, they would have thought you were crazy. The idea that the government would knowingly do this was treated as some outlandish claim, a conspiracy theory. But here's the thing, it wasn't a theory. The facts eventually came out, proving the unbelievable was all too real. So this brings us right to the deception itself, a deception that lasted for 40 years. How did they pull this off? I mean, how did this experiment actually work? And how on earth were hundreds of men kept completely in the dark for so long?
Okay, this timeline right here is just absolutely crucial. The study kicks off in 1932. But then, fast forward to the 1940s, and guess what? Penicillin is established as the standard, effective cure for syphilis. And this is the most damning part of the whole story. The study didn't stop. It kept going for nearly 30 more years, actively denying a known cure to its subjects. It wasn't until 1972 that a whistleblower finally blew the whole thing wide open.
And wow, this slide just lays out the core lie, doesn't it? The roughly 600 participants, about 400 of whom had syphilis, were told they were getting free treatment for something called bad blood, which was kind of this vague, local term for all sorts of ailments. The truth, the horrible truth, was they were getting no treatment at all. They were simply being observed.
And the deception was totally systematic. I mean, first, the men were never even told they had syphilis. Then, when some of them tried to get treatment from other doctors, the study's organizers actively intervened to stop them. And get this, they even offered burial stipends to families. It wasn't out of kindness. It was to secure permission to perform a final autopsy to gather their data.
So who was behind this? It's easy to imagine some shadowy group, but the reality is actually far more disturbing. This wasn't a secret plot. It was a massive failure of public institutions.
The study was run by the U.S. Public Health Service. They worked with local health authorities and even researchers from affiliated universities. We're not talking about rogue agents here. These were official government bodies and established academic institutions.
And that right there, that's the point that makes this whole thing so incredibly chilling. This wasn't an unethical act carried out in secret. It was a public program, run by the official agencies of a democratic nation. The horror isn't that it was hidden, but that it happened in plain sight of the very people who were supposed to uphold public trust.
So once this all came out, the exposure had these profound, long-lasting consequences. It left behind what you could call a dual legacy. On one hand, just deep-seated damage. And on the other, it was a catalyst for critical, necessary reform.
And you can really see both sides of that legacy here. The harm is a profound and completely justified medical distrust within Black communities, which has led to issues like vaccine hesitancy that we still see today. But the progress is also huge. This event led directly to the creation of modern medical ethics, things like informed consent, mandatory review boards, and really strict regulations for protecting human subjects in research.
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? The distrust isn't some emotional overreaction. It is a 100% rational response based on the historical memory of a community being systematically betrayed by the very institutions that were meant to protect them.
So what's the final, crucial point we should take away from all this? Well, it's a lesson about evidence, it's about oversight, and it's about a specific kind of danger that we all need to be aware of.
Look, the lesson from Tuskegee isn't that you should blindly believe every conspiracy theory you hear. Not at all. The real takeaway is that claims have to be investigated, not just dismissed because they seem unbelievable. It highlights just how absolutely necessary evidence, verification, and institutional oversight really are. And that brings us to the true horror of the Tuskegee study. It wasn't some secret plot driven by pure malice. It was, as the source material puts it, the unverified justice that happens when goodwill and systems combine. It's what happens when people believe they're serving a greater good, in this case science, but they're operating without any checks, balances, or external verification to stop them.
And that leaves us with a final, pretty unsettling question to think about. The Tuskegee study was exposed because someone dared to verify a claim that almost everyone else dismissed. So it makes you wonder, what truths, big or small, are we failing to verify today?